This is the Getting Started with Mylio Photos webinar. What we're going to do today is go over what Mylio Photos is, how to create an account and why you need one, setting up and installing the software, how to add photos, get those photos synced across your devices. We'll give you a brief tour of some of the highlights of how to browse your photos through the software and where you can continue your learning journey to get the most out of Mylio Photos. To start things off, my name is Angela Andrew. I'm a product evangelist for Mylio Photos, and I'm also a photographer and photo educator. I'm joined by my colleague, JC Figueroa. He's our customer success lead and also an underwater photographer. So something cool to note about Mylio as a company is we are all passionate about photos. A lot of us are amateur and strong enthusiast photographers, and some are just family memory keepers and into genealogy, but we're all passionate about imagery and keeping your images safe and accessible. So we like photos, and we know you're here because you do too. A couple of things before we dive into the meat of the program. We have a Q&A pod, so if you have questions, that's the place to ask them. We will have some time for Q&A at the end, but if you have questions as we go through, feel free to pop them into the Q&A. JC will be answering those, and if there's something that we need to take a look at as we're going through the presentation, we can always pause and address your questions there as well. So please don't be afraid to ask questions. This is why we're here, and there's no stupid question. We're also going to be recording this. So if you want to watch it later, your schedule says you can only catch the first 15 minutes. You can always go to community.mylio.com, go into the topics section and into webinar replays and catch the replay there. Usually we have these recordings up within about 48 hours. So you'll be able to see today's within a couple of days after this. You can always go back and watch the one from a couple of weeks ago as well. The topic is pretty much the same. Mostly it's just your questions that change. So let's go in and figure out what Mylio Photos is and how it can improve your life. So Mylio Photos empowers everyday photographers, that's you and me, everyone from strong enthusiasts to amateurs to the family memory keepers, to access all of your photos and videos in a secure and connected library. What does that mean? It turns all of your devices, your computers, smartphones, tablets, into a mesh network that connect with each other and allow you to access all of your images from one application, no matter which device you're using. It's probably the coolest thing about this software, and one of the things that really brought me in, and I love, because I can get to my pictures no matter where I'm at. Case in point, I was actually at a family gathering yesterday, remembered a photo, was able to pull it up in Mylio, hand it around to my family and friends. Really, really cool experience to have all of those things at my fingertips. So how does it work? Well, a lot of us have smaller smartphones. Maybe your tablet doesn't have a lot of storage. And if you have many, many years of photos, it can be concerning to think, how much storage space is that going to take up? Well, what Mylio Photos does is it has your original photos, it protects those photos, but it also makes thumbnails, which are really tiny, and smart previews, which are about 5% the size of your originals. So depending on which device you're using, you can auto-optimize to have smaller versions of all of your images. And then when you need it, you can always pull down a higher quality version, no matter which device you're using. It's really, really cool. It's also great for travel and you want to access your stuff while you're on the go. There are sophisticated facial recognition, text recognition, GPS, lots of different ways to explore your photos, search for your photos. We have editing tools built in. So if you want to brighten your photo a little bit, maybe pull out a little bit more detail of the shadows, you can do that without even leaving our software. However, if you are really into photo editing, I know I'm one of those people, and you love to use other applications like Photoshop or Luminar or Topaz or any of these other really cool photo editing apps out there, Mylio Photos works great with them as external editors. You don't have to have an internet connection or use the cloud to use Mylio Photos, which is really great. And there are mechanisms in place that you can use in Mylio Photos to protect and back up your images. So in case your cell phone gets lost, somebody steals your computer, those horrible things happen, your photo library is protected. All right, so let's dive into actually getting started with the software. So the first thing you're going to want to do is create a Mylio account. And one of the questions we get a lot is, why do I need an account? Can't I just try the software? Well, the reason we ask you to create an account first is Mylio is an application and a service. The application is what you install on your computer, your phone, etc. The service is what allows us to help you get all that information back and forth between your devices. So your login, when you create that account, is what facilitates those devices talking together. So that's why we ask you to create an account up front. And you can go to our sign-in page, and let me just quickly switch over to a web browser, and we'll take a look at what that looks like. So I am at account.mylio.com/signup. If you're brand new to Mylio Photos, this is where you're going to go. If you already have an account, you can just click on login here. I already have an account, so that's what I'm going to do. And I'll enter in my credentials, and it jumps straight to the download page. So if you're just starting out, you're going to see this. Once you create that account, you click download. And if you're on Windows, it'll say download for Windows, and grab that software and get it installed. Once you have that download running, I encourage you to explore what else is available here in your Mylio account. You obviously have another download link here. Once you add some devices, like you get it installed on your computer or your smartphone, you'll be able to see all of your devices listed here. And you can take a look at your account, see what plan you have, change your password, email, etc. So there's lots of great information here inside of your Mylio account. Once that's created, you can go ahead and go to your downloads folder and install your software. All right, here. Are there any questions so far, JC?
Not so far.
All right, so once you click that download button, you're going to go to the downloads folder on your computer. And for Windows, you're going to locate the Mylio_x64 or ARM64 MSIX file. On Mac, you'll locate the mylio.dmg. Double click those files. You'll get some instructions on screen. Follow those on-screen instructions to install the software. Once you do that, we'll be into our initial setup and we can start having some fun. So what's going to happen is Mylio is going to ask you where you want your Mylio library folder. This is a really big question. There's a few things you're going to want to consider as you do this. So the Mylio library folder is the default location for all of your future imports, meaning any images that you want to bring into Mylio, that's where it's going to start with. Now you can always change that. It's not locked in. When you do an import, you have the ability to change where those files go. But by default, they're going to go to that Mylio library folder. And where should you put that folder? Well, we highly recommend external hard drives and desktop computers that have a lot of storage space. Mobile devices such as tablets, smartphones, laptop computers are typically not good sources because they don't have a lot of storage space. You want to make sure that the source for your Mylio library folder has room to grow because you're going to be adding more images to it over time. All right. Now from here, I'm going to jump over to the application and we're going to just walk through some of these initial steps. So when you first start Mylio Photos, this is the welcome screen and you can just go ahead and click through. We're going to enter in our login credentials. So let me go ahead and do that really quick. And log in, and it's going to ask you, where do you store your photos? And it's going to want to know, do you have all your pictures on external drives? Are they on your phone? Where do you typically keep your stuff? So I'm going to go ahead and click next. And it just gives you a little bit of a walkthrough of how to deal with this. So setting up your first device, and this is where you choose your Mylio library folder. Go ahead and click next. So the first question you get is, do you want to choose an existing folder or create a new folder? If you want to set it up on a different computer, you're going to want to quit this for now and re-download the software on that new computer. For now, we're going to look at selecting an existing folder or creating a new folder. So let me jump back to the presentation here for a second. If you already have a library of organized media, let's say you've been using Lightroom or you've been using OnWhat or some other system to catalog your images. JC, can you take over for a minute here? I need to mute.
No problem, I can take over. So there's two options here. You can choose an existing folder if your photos are already in that folder. And when you choose that folder, Mylio is automatically going to scan that folder and it's going to bring any media, any photos, any videos that are already there as part of your library. You can also choose to create a new folder if one of your goals, for example, with Mylio is to consolidate photos that are in a lot of different locations. You can create a new folder with the knowledge that any new photos that you import into Mylio are gonna eventually make their way to that new folder. And again, that new folder can be anywhere you choose to. It can be on an external storage device, and Mylio will move the photos there. How you doing, Angela?
I'm good. I just had a tickle in my throat that would not stop. So I apologize, everybody.
I've been there.
It's like the worst thing when you're presenting, right? So let's jump back over to the program and think about this as we set this up. Now, the example I'm going to go with is I have a few images that are already organized, but I really want to consolidate and get everything organized on a fresh new drive. So I'm going to create a new folder on a brand new hard drive. You go ahead and click forward here, and I'm going to select my location. So I'm going to choose change my location and choose where I want to put this. For this, I'm going to go down here to what I call the Mylio Vault. And this is just what I named by drive. And I'm going to create a new folder here and call it Angela's Photos. And so I have a brand new folder that will become my Mylio library folder on this brand new empty hard drive. So I'll select open. There we go. It says looks good. And it's setting up my Mylio Photos, Mylio library folder. All right, there we go. I can say got it. And since this is an empty folder on a brand new drive, there are no photos for Mylio to work with. Luckily, we have a sample library that's very cool, and I can install that sample library so I can poke around the software without having committed any of my images to it yet. So if you're a little bit hesitant and you want to just play around with the software, using the sample library is a great way to do that. So let me switch back over here and talk a bit about what that is. It's very easy to add. As you saw, I clicked one button and it brought in a bunch of photos. It's also very easy to remove. So once you're ready to be done working with it, there's just a couple of clicks to uninstall it, and all remnants of that is removed from your computer. So you don't have to worry about it cluttering up your own library once you bring in your own photos. What it does is it gives you an idea of what an organized photo library looks like, and you can use it to experiment without doing anything with your own photos until you're ready. So let's jump over here and take a look at what an organized library looks like. So when I first clicked to bring in the sample library, you would have noticed that there was a little blue circle here moving around the activity monitor. And that shows you when Mylio is doing something. And I'm just going to click through a few of these buttons here, close those out, and then we can explore a little bit more freely. All right, so sample library is installed. We have a notification center here. Up here in the upper right are a few other important things. We have what we call the More menu, and this is where you're going to find general settings. We have our Help menu, which there's a lot of stuff here that we can go over here in a bit. Important things to note. We already talked about activities and the notifications. This is where you can add new media. But for now, let's jump over to the All Photos and take a look at some of the images that were brought in with the sample library. And this is typically a chronological listing of everything in your library. So hence the All Photos. So you can scroll through this and take a look at the images that are here. You can change the view by zooming in or out, making those images smaller or larger here at the bottom, and so forth. So from there, we can jump over to the calendar view. And this is another chronological view, but it's more like a calendar. And we start off in decade view, where we can see things year by year. And we can then click into a year and start seeing things month by month. From there, you can click onto a month and see things day by day. And when you zero into a day that you want to see more of, you can click onto that day and see every photo that was captured on that day. It's a really great way to interact with your images if you're the type of person who finds things based on when something was taken. I'm one of those people. I like to organize my things by year, by month, by day. And finding things through the calendar is probably the easiest way for me to find things. Now, there's a lot of different people whose minds work differently than mine. I totally get that. So that's why we have different views. If you remember things based on where they were taken, you're going to love the map view. Everything that comes out of your smartphone is automatically geotagged, and a lot of other cameras also have GPS information built in. If you don't have if your images don't already have geotagging information, it's very, very simple to add it. All you have to do is go over to your photos. Let's say we have these 3 photos and we want to add them to the map. We can go over here to this little map tab, and you can simply figure out, you can put in a search, you can locate that wherever you want it to be on the map, grab those images and drag them onto the map, And that's going to add location coordinates for those images. And it really helps you organize your images. And if you find images based on where they were taken, that is the best way to do it. We also have our people view, which allows you to use our facial recognition and find people or find images based on who is in them. So we can take a look here. So JC, you can see he is one of the models for our sample library, and we can see a bunch of photos of JC. Now you'll notice all these images are zoomed in on his face. If you want to see the full photo, you can go up here to the More menu and turn off Zoom to Face, and then you see the photo in a little bit more context of where it was taken. Completely up to you how you want to interact with that. By default, it's going to have Zoom to Face, but you can always turn that off. So People View is a really fun way to find photos as well. Now you'll notice as I went into a collection here, I can double click on the collection. If I want to go back out to the main screen, I can double click on that header and it takes me out to the top level view. We also have albums and folders. Folders are folders are a mirror of what's on your hard drive. If you open up an Explorer or a Finder window, you look at those folders, that's what you're seeing here in Mylio as well. You're going to see the actual physical location of where those photos are on your hard drives. Albums are more like playlists where you can take photos and add them to different albums without actually replicating them on your computer. And you can have a single photo in 5 different albums. However you want to organize, albums are a great way to, for instance, we have landscapes, birds, wildlife. The categories you use here for albums is really, the sky is the limit. There's so many different options of how you can categorize. You can choose to do things you want to edit. You can group things by certain vacations, certain locations. There's so many different ways you can use albums to organize, and it really helps you figure out what suits the way you find things. So that's just a quick overview of how to use Mylio Photos. Let's go back here to the presentation here for just a second and talk about, there was one other area in the software I wanted to show you. I pointed out the More menu up here in the upper right. You'll also want to know about the Quick Actions menu down here in the left, or in the lower right. My directions are all messed up today. So down here in the bottom right, that is also mimicked in, if you go in and take a look at a photo and you right click, that's going to be the same menu. So it's a great thing to know that you can either right click on an image or go down to that Quick Actions menu. Lots of good info to be had in both of those. All right, so let's go ahead and add some of our own photos. Before I do that, I want to remove that sample library, and I'm going to show you just how easy it is. I can go up to the Help menu and choose Remove Sample Library. Confirm that that's what I want to do. And there it goes. It'll start disappearing. You can see that there's activities happening, and now the sample library has been removed. It is that fast. And now my account is back to being empty, and I can add my own media. Now I have some images on another hard drive that are accessible from this computer, and they're already somewhat organized, and I want to keep them where they're at. I don't want to necessarily move them around or get them into a different place because I might have another application that's also watching that folder. So I'm going to choose Add Media Accessible from this device and go down to my Mylio Pics folder here and choose My Amazing Photos. I'll click Open, and that's going to give me a few more options. Now, if I wanted to consolidate, I might copy them or move them to my Mylio library folder. But because I have another application that's watching them, I'm going to choose Link Them, and that leaves them where they are and lets Mylio know where it can find them. So choose Link Now, and that's going to bring those images in. So adding images to Mylio Photos is that simple. So I've successfully added that, click out of that, and now click into my All Photos, and it is generating the previews and the thumbnails for all of these photos that I just brought in. And there we go, it's adding them a few still more. All right, so there we go. So that is how you add photos. It's really that easy. Now you can also add photos from different devices. Let me go ahead and click on the plus here. You can add media from an online service like Facebook, Flickr, or Google Photos. If you have an iPhone or use iCloud Photo Drive, you can use this option here to add your Apple Photos. Lots of different ways to bring in your images into that single library And then once they're in the Mylio Photos and you install Mylio Photos on your other devices, you'll be able to see those photos on every device that you've connected. Really, really powerful stuff. All right. So let's go ahead and take a look. Mylio Photos works on Windows, Mac OS, Android, and iOS. So it lets you bring together all of your different devices. A lot of people have mixed device households, and Mylio lets you bring those all together, and everybody in your household can use Mylio Photos and bring their images into a single library. So we've covered a lot of information today, and I know it's a lot to take in, so we have a lot of other resources for you to help you continue learning Mylio Photos. The first one I mentioned earlier was that in-app help menu. Just jump back over to the software here, and we'll take a closer look at what's in that help menu. So the how-to guide is going to take you straight to our product manual. The community will take you to our awesome community where you can get to know other Mylio Photos users, ask questions, post photos. It's a really fun place. We also share a lot of articles, education, and tons of resources. If you have technical issues, I invite you to check out troubleshooting. That takes you to our support forum, where that's monitored by a lot of our very technical users, as well as our support and engineering teams. They keep a very close eye on that as well. If you have questions about the software and getting started, our frequently asked questions has lots of answered. We already talked about sample library. And if you have a question that you can't get answered through one of the other channels, you can always directly contact our support team right here through the app. And there's a few other options here with our console and show support options on startup. If you run into trouble, those are we might give you directions to go into those areas. But these options here at the top are the ones you're most likely going to encounter. So those are great to have at the tip of your fingers. We also have a quick start guide inside that product manual. We have a full-length course in the community that helps you dive deeper. And if you want to go ahead and scan this QR code we have on the screen, that'll take you to a page with links to all of these so you can get to them very, very easily. So I'll give you a second. JC, how are we doing on questions?
We've had a few questions so far, and I've managed to answer them, but ready for more. So,
all right.
Bring it.
Well, we're at the end of the presentation. So if anybody has any other questions, I invite you to go ahead and pop them into the Q&A right now or into the chat. We'll take a look at those. And I think that's all we have for today if there's no more questions.
Yeah, and if there's any follow-ups to the questions that have already been answered, let us know.
Perfect. Well, at least looks like George has a question here. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing for a moment and take a quick look here. And I think it was with regard to travel. So what do you recommend for using Mylio when traveling? So George, that's a really great question. When I travel, it depends on what my travel is for. If I'm just taking a weekend away with my family and not planning on working, I'll just take my camera and my iPad. And I can use my iPad to import images from Mylio, and then they'll sync up with my computer when I get back home. If I'm traveling for work, I'll usually take my laptop. And again, I have two different computers. The computer that I have at home is connected to my external drives where everything is saved and backed up. I can take my other computer with me, and as long as I'm connected to the internet, everything will sync up as long as I'm connected. So I know, JC, you travel with Mylio a lot. Do you have any recommendations?
What I take with me depends on, like you said, how far away from home I'm going to be. And by the way, somebody's asking for that QR code. Can you throw it up there?
Pulling it back up.
So some of it depends on how far I'm going to be. Some of it depends on how good my internet connection is going to be. And a lot of it depends on how many photos I'm planning to take. If I'm away for the weekend, I just take my iPad and my camera. I upload the photos directly to my iPad that can often see my phone. So my phone and my iPad see each other, and the photos get saved in two places, plus the camera memory card. And this gives me a chance to sit down with the iPad, do quick edits, do some calling, and get rid of photos. And by the time I sync with my computers at home, a lot of the heavy lifting has been done. If I'm traveling to a remote location where internet connection is less available, or if I'm going to be shooting a lot, like when I go on a dive trip, I take thousands of photos every day. So in those cases, I tend to take a laptop just so that I can have more storage and more capacity. I take a small SSD drive with me. I take my laptop, and that way I can upload photos to my laptop internal drive and to that SSD drive and have backups that way. And I tend to travel with the two of them separately. The laptop goes in one bag, the SSD drive goes in my pocket or in another bag. So I never lose my photos, no matter what happens.
Awesome. All right, looks like we have another question here. If I use iCloud to launch Apple Photos across device or to sync Apple Photos across devices, should I sync only to iCloud and not to a device? All right, so this is a great question, Ted. The way we work with iCloud Photos is you can add Mylio on any of your devices. Mylio is smart enough to know that it's already brought in pictures, let's say from your iPhone. If you connect your computer as well, it's not going to duplicate those photos in Mylio Photos. We use, there's a unique code that Apple puts into each image, right, JC?
Yeah.
And we recognize that, so we don't bring in images as duplicates. So let me go ahead. Do you have Mylio pulled up with multiple devices so you can show what that looks like coming from?
I do, yeah, I do.
Different devices, because I'm on my test account right now.
Absolutely, I can show that.
Awesome.
But very quickly, while I'm doing that, I want to clarify that the way Mylio used to synchronize with Apple Photos and the way it does it now has changed. I think Ted has been a user for a long time, so he might be used to the old way. And it used to be that we would recommend not to use iCloud Photo Library, because then you would have two competing devices or two competing synchronization services. And when you added multiple devices to Mylio, you would get duplicates. In the last release, we changed the way, and we changed it because Apple finally allowed us to change the way that we connect. And now we grabbed that unique photo identifier on every photo. So it doesn't matter if the same photo is on your iPad, on your Mac computer, and on your iPhone. We know that it's the same photo, and we're not going to import it multiple times. So if I go here to my Apple Photos folder, you'll notice there's two folders. One is for my iPad Air. The other one's for my iPhone. Obviously, I take a lot more photos with my iPhone than I do with my iPad. You can see the number of photos on each side. You can see my screen, right?
Yep, I see it.
Okay. I didn't see the green line around it, so I was a little thrown off. I tend to move, once I've taken the photos, I tend to move into the folders that they really belong. That's why there's not a lot of photos on either one of these folders. But that's how Mylio separates them. So these photos are being synchronized by iCloud Photo Library between the devices before they are seen by Mylio. But once they're seen by Mylio, they go to all of my devices. And I have a lot of devices. I have multiple computers. I have iPad, iPhone, Android phone, and multiple vaults for storage. So I think that answers the question.
I think so. Ray has a question. He has a drive with a lot of photos that are not organized. Will Mylio organize my photos, and can I organize them after they've been imported? So yes to both questions. You can import them unorganized. What you may want to do is, like I showed in the demonstration, create a new folder for your Mylio library folder, add that media as a copy or a move, and then use the auto-organize tools inside of Mylio Photos. I'm going to pull up really quick.
I was going to show you.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead and show them. I'm going to grab the link to the manual article.
Trying to see if I have a folder with photos that's not already in Mylio. I don't think I do. Well, here's a test folder. So one of the things that I can tell Mylio to do as I'm bringing photos in is I can click here on Show Advanced Settings, and I can change the folder organization. So for example, any photos that come in, they can get organized into folders by year, month, or day, or year and month, or just a year. Or I can even create a custom folder organization, which gives you almost unlimited options. I'm not even going to try to explain all of these options right now. They're all listed on our website, but you can create a very unique folder structure, and Mylio will create that folder structure based on the metadata of the photos as they're coming in. You can also add keywords to the photos. So if you know that all these photos are from a particular trip, you can add that keyword as the photos are being imported. And then within Mylio, go ahead and organize the photos. And once you're in Mylio, you see the same folders. And I'm going to split my screen here and show the Finder. And I'm going to show my primary media drive here. And what you'll notice is that the folder structure within that drive is the same folder structure that I see in my Mylio library. And when I open one of these folders, like the 105 test folder, if I open the same folder in my hard drive, I'm going to see the same subfolders there. And when I create a new folder in Mylio, that folder gets created in my hard drive. And if I move photos in there, those photos will be moved to the hard drive and vice versa. So that's how it all works.
Awesome. Well, we also have our auto organize, which allows you to take a folder of images and break them up by date and other criteria. I put a link to that article from the manual into the chat so everybody can see it if you want to make use of it. I will say if you have images in a folder that are already being watched by another program, let's say Lightroom, you'll want to be careful using auto organize because that will change your folder structure, and any other programs that are watching those may get disconnected and it may cause issues with those libraries. So just something to be aware of. Ray says, if photos from an older camera that are not timestamped, what happens to them? Also a great question. So you can change the timestamp in Mylio Photos. You can open up the right-hand info panel and choose the info tab and enter in a different date. You can also add a date range. You can change the date in a lot of different ways. If you don't know what it is, you can see that JC just moused over undated. So that's a great way to organize it. And how that appears, can you jump over to your calendar view for a moment and scroll to the top? So anything you mark as undated is going to end up in a category at the top called undated. So it doesn't clutter up the rest of your calendar. It also serves as a sort of to-do list. So if you need to do some research, some family history stuff, you can go back and add dates as you learn more.
Angela, I just want to clarify for Ray, if the photos that you're importing do not have a date on them, if the metadata in the photo doesn't have a date, Mylio is going to use the create date, which in this case will be the date you're importing. So they'll have today's date. And then you'll want to change that date right away. This is the same thing that happens when you scan a photo. The photo obviously might have been taken, like this photo here of my mom with her sisters and her grandma that was taken in 1944. When I scanned that photo, it scanned with the date that I took it, which I think was sometime in 2019. So the first thing I had to do was go and correct that date. And in this case, I wasn't sure, or my mom can tell me when exactly that photo was taken, but she could tell me it was in June of 1944. So I gave it a date range. I said, this photo was taken sometime between June 1st and June 30th. So lots and lots that you can do with changing the dates on the photo and making them, this is how I have my calendar organized. This is why the photos that are the most important to me show up for every year, is because I've taken the time to scan and date correct my photos. I think my digital photos started somewhere around 1999. Most of the photos before that are prints. So I think that helps.
Very cool. All right, so Fran says, how would I change the main library from laptop to an external drive? I need to clean up my main folder. Photos, let's see, photos get deleted from Mylio. I'd rather have those deleted photos still available. My laptop is seriously running out of space. Fran, what I would do is, most likely you have your Mylio library folder set up on your Mac, which is not terrible, and you don't necessarily need to move it. But what you want to do is add a new device, get an external hard drive, add that as a new device, and then set your computer to be auto-optimized and set up that external drive as a vault. And that's going to move all of those originals to that external drive and only keep a smaller amount of stuff on your internal hard drive. Is that what you would recommend, JC?
Yeah, and I've been working with Fran. She has a
good.
pretty unique case where I think there's some remnants of a previous installation that are causing some issues. So we're actually analyzing her catalog and trying to reverse some of those changes. But what you said is correct. If she has an external drive, that external drive the device quality for that drive should be set up as a vault. That means that all the originals are going to go to that drive. The laptop internal storage, well, there's two things you want to do. You want to allocate only so much space for Mylio to use in that drive, and you can do that from the device storage settings. And then you want to set the quality to either auto optimize, so Mylio intelligently uses the storage you allocated, or you can just set it to thumbnails and say just put thumbnails in here so that it doesn't take a lot of space. And notice the difference between how many space my entire library of 38,000 photos, it would take about a terabyte, close to a terabyte if it's the original files, but only 824 megabytes, not even a gigabyte if it's only the thumbnails. So you use the device quality settings to manage space. But in Fran's case, there's something else going on, and we're helping her over on the support side.
Excellent. Well, Fran, you're definitely in good hands. If anybody else is running into trouble like that, remember you can always go up to that help menu up in the upper right corner and contact support. Part of what that does is it allows us to get logs from the software so we can further analyze what's going on. If you go to our support page or use a support email, we have to then reach back out to you, ask for more information. This gets us a little bit closer to being able to solve those problems for you. So we encourage you to go through the app when possible.
Absolutely.
All right. Are there any other questions before we sign off for the day? All right. I want to thank everybody for being here today. I hope you enjoyed it and got something out of it. Your questions are always appreciated. And one thing that I want to emphasize as you're getting going with Mylio Photos is to take it in baby steps. This is a big program with a lot of flexibility and a lot of options, and it can be overwhelming to learn it from the start. So pick pieces of it, learn little bits at a time, and don't feel like you have to use every single aspect. I think that's the thing that trips most people up, is you see all of the options and you want to use everything and then you get overwhelmed. Use the pieces that make the most sense for you. If you like to find things by date, work on the calendar. If you like to find things by where you were, work on the map. If you like to organize in a different way, albums might be exactly the choice for you, but you don't have to do everything, and just take it little bits at a time. And it's much more fun that way, I promise. So with that, I want to wish you all a wonderful day. Thank you, JC, for joining me and answering questions. And we hope to see you guys again. We hold this webinar every 2 weeks. So check the events page in the community for the next schedule, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.